I'm kind of out of process here. But I was kind of hoping that we could go ahead and, as you say, define it and have a discussion, or have a bit of a presentation, and then I can respond to your presentation. Then we can open it up to stack. But rather than right now, we're kind of touching on little things, but we're not getting in very deep. So I'm thinking if we could go ahead, I think starting out with a definition, and then a overview. We were saying 5 or 10 minutes overview on what problems you have with the Fed, and being as concise as possible, and then I'll try to get in and respond to that, and then we can open it up, because I think, I know I can learn a lot from the people that are out here.
Are you amenable to that?
Well, I was simply looking for a general discussion. I'm really not going to take the lead into it.
That's okay. If we go on that process, then there was a stack, and I just completely violated it. But you had a question. You were first on stack, so your question was to him.
It's not just to him. My question is,
okay.
What is the Federal Reserve Bank? Why are we talking about it, basically? Instead of, obviously some people know a lot about it, but I came because I was hoping to learn what it is and why is this a big debate.
Basically a description.
Yeah, and I actually know what it is.
Oh, I'm sorry, we're doing a stack, so I'm gonna defer to the facilitators of the class how you want to handle this. Can you give a definition, or do you want to just go into?
You want to give a definition, or do you want me to?
I think it's better if you give it.
Okay. I'll try to do this quick. First off, the Federal Reserve is a rather complex institution, and there is a huge amount of misinformation regarding it from both sides, and to try to find legitimate information is almost impossible. I've done a good bit of research, and all the research I've done, I put down the sources. So the research is not any better than the sources, and I'll try to be as transparent as possible and let you know what the sources would be. I'll try to do a quick history and a quick overview of the Federal Reserve. The Federal Reserve was created in 1913. Before the Federal Reserve was created, the country had a history of many periodic depressions, recessions. It was going back and forth all the time. And in 1913, the Congress went ahead and passed the Federal Reserve Act, and that act went ahead and established a Federal Reserve, a central bank, and that central bank was to do a couple things. It was to go ahead and to stabilize the economy, and it was to go ahead, it provided at that time some backing for some, but not all. I think only national banks, for a very small percentage of the banks. Later on in the 1930s, after the Depression and all that stuff, they started going ahead and having U.S. government guaranteeing a certain amount of money in all banks. The Federal Reserve was also involved in creating monetary policy. There is an impression out there that the Federal Reserve is the one that prints our money. Our money is actually printed by an outfit by the U.S. government in an outfit called I got it here someplace. Printing and Engraving Department of the U.S. Treasury prints the money. The Federal Reserve, on the other hand, does regulate the amount of money that is in circulation, and it does this by increasing and decreasing interest. There's a perception that the Federal Reserve is responsible for inflation. When I read about that, I see that it seems like people are demonizing even small amounts of inflation and calling it monstrous. And it seems like people are wanting us to go, the end of Fed group are wanting us to go back to the gold standard, or at least to have some kind of backing for U.S. dollars. I have a lot to say about a lot of this stuff. A lot of the stuff that I'm talking about, to me, has some real problems. But the Federal Reserve, there are people saying that it is not a government organization; it's a private bank. There's other people saying no, it's completely a government organization. I would offer a middle road. The Federal Reserve is the Federal Reserve has 7 board members. Each of those board members is nominated by the President of the United States. The Federal Reserve, the profits the Federal Reserve makes above their operating expenses are paid back to the U.S. government. I don't know of any private, and that information, by the way, I'm getting from Wikipedia's Federal Reserve. So I'll try to give where I'm picking up this stuff I'm throwing out. It's from Wikipedia's website on Federal Reserve Bank. Um, um, so to me, there's just an awful lot of misinformation on both sides, and you have to be very, very careful. And you may want to comment on my next statement. My personal feeling is that the end the Fed movement, to me, is very problematic because when I scratch the surface of this end the Fed movement, beneath it I find a very, very strong libertarian base, which means me first, to hell with everybody else, a very strong base towards deregulation. They talk about protecting us from the wealthy. Deregulation is going to help those people. It's not going to help us. If you go through and see what the end of Fed movement is going towards, deregulation, return to the gold standard, demonization and misinformation on the ideas around inflation. I've even found some in the Fed websites that are wanting to get rid of all gun control. I mean, it's anyway. I've talked too long.
Should I go back to stack, or do you want to?
It's better we go back to stats.
Okay, so Leon, did you?
I think Omar was before me.
You're on again, but so you already asked it. So Omar.
Well, I'm going to jump under the gun here. What is the alternatives? That's my question.
Well, my last alternative would be to basically make people aware of some of the negative impacts the Federal Reserve Bank has on the society as a whole.
Yeah, speak up.
Well, basically, what my objective is basically to make people aware of the negative impact that the Federal Reserve Bank has on the society. And basically, it's basically educational purpose. For an educational purpose, at the same time, to provide alternative concepts instead of a centralized banking system.
What are the alternatives?
And that's what he asked is, what's your, if you want to eliminate the Federal Reserve, what do you want to have in its place? Anything?
Yeah, those are strategies that you're giving out. What I'm getting at is the beginning stages of having alternative, how should I say it, alternative wealth or alternative platform
Yeah.
to replace the stronghold of the Federal Reserve. That's my question. All right. You have it.
Well, I simply thought that it would be better to bring up discussions about a non-localized distributed banking system where the information about the financial transaction, it's basically theorizing or bringing discussion about such concept where we can have no middle banks or middleman in the middle, instead having a direct interaction between the people who have their money in the economy and having a real-time understanding or a real-time interaction with the money itself, rather than having a central, powerful banking system, centralized banking system, where basically they have all the money and basically they have the right to regulate how the money is being spent on the economy, rather than in general bringing a whole community together and then decide how the money is going to be spent. Because what happens is that when money becomes too localized in a specific spot, in a specific institution, they tend to create power differences, power level differences, where only a small group of people have the power to regulate the money flow. And basically this is something that I completely disagree with. Instead, have the money in front of the people and let them decide as a collective on how the money is going to be spent. And this is I think this is one of the philosophies that kind of relates to the Occupy, where there is a general sharing amongst each other rather than specific body of group of people will decide on how the money is being spent. So yeah, definitely, it's one of the outlooks that I want to bring towards Occupy. That even though it's a political agenda by politicians, but the whole concept about the Federal Reserve Bank as a powerful institution where people have no say to it, and they over the course of time have indirectly uh, funded political instability in other countries by controlling the gold standards compared to that country, raising inflations in that country, causing where people in other countries were they had high prices, and there was a revolution or like a fight or violent fight. This caused America to get involved into it. For instance, what's happening is that in Syria, what initially started as was that there was a high inflation in food products and stuff like that. So collectively, the UN basically decided that we should put sanctions on them, and sort of manipulate the dollar in such a way where we make their commodities more expensive, causing instability in those countries, and letting America intervene or other foreign troops intervene, saying that it's for a humanitarian cause rather than actually saying that it was manipulated and instigated war.
Okay, I'm gonna do progressive stacking and let Rachel speak first, and then Tuyan. Then I have Bilal, Ed, and Adam. Rachel, would you like to say something?
Yeah. I think it's important to keep it because there's going to be a time when there will be no money in the tax pool. And people that are on SSI, security, they're going to need that. And that's where they're going to pull the money out of. I mean, it's like a stimulus payment came from the reserve. I mean, that's why it's so important to keep it. Because there's going to be a time when we're going to need it. They don't want another depression in this country because they haven't figured out that it's already here. Because there's just too many of the one percenters buying up these buildings. And I mean, I was just looking at a real estate agency book today, and just releasing a two-bedroom house in Hollywood. They wanted, I believe it was $3,000. Well, only the rich have that kind of money, and that's how they'll keep the 99% out of these big places. But with the reserve, it's going to make sure that we still get the SSI and the security, and sometimes even the GR. Eventually, it's all going to come from there.
Tuyan?
I think just going back to what you wrote on the Facebook, you said that Federal Reserve Bank undermines the sovereignty of the United States. I don't think that's a bad thing. I think that's an excellent idea to undermine the sovereignty of the United States, because as it is, the U.S. has had too much power, and it has been a superpower which has basically destroyed the world and has put its finger on many places that it should not have. It has overthrown democratically elected governments. It has messed up elections in many countries. It has assassinated people all over the world. So I think it's actually a very good idea to undermine the sovereignty of the United States. I don't see why that would be a problem.
Okay, so we have Bilal.
I was eliminating the Federal Reserve Bank, change the
Speak up.
power relationships in this country.
Yeah, I mean,
Doing away with the federal bank, basically change the hierarchical structure, social order, create a more egalitarian society.
Definitely. Well, I think we had a discussion previously saying that you see the Federal Reserve Bank as a component of a capitalistic society. I totally agree with that. And I think that tackling the components or the Federal Reserve Bank is a really big issue because they have the power to let money flow, and basically they can be used in terms of manipulating people's mind or people's perception about certain things. For instance, if in this economy where we are having a lot of economic instability,
I step like two feet back this way.
where banks are having huge scandals or committing huge scandals, where the Wall Street is definitely, basically stealing all the money from the investors. The Federal Reserve Bank has so much money that it can basically release the money into the system, causing us to forget the real problem that's still occurring. um, like for instance, increasing this SSI, for instance, from $50 more or $100 more. It makes people forget about what the real problems are, and they use money, as a tactical way of changing the flow or the perception of people. Because as many what we agree is that money is the root to all evil, and it's basically used manipulating people's minds.
Anybody might disagree with you on that?
If you want to be on the stash, I can add you, but we're so
But
just
excuse me, was that a yes or a no to my question?
Basically, that's forgot the question.
I can't hear you.
Yeah, forgot the question. Could you repeat the
I'm
question?
asking you what's significant if you had
Yes,
done away
yes,
with the
there
Federal
is-
Reserve Bank. How would that change the relationship, the balance of power, and would that significantly do away with this parasitic economic social order that we're under right now?
I do believe yes.
And how would that happen?
I do not tend to be an expert on it, but I think it definitely has a significant impact. And,
An example? Do you have an example of that?
well, as I said, I mean,
I don't want to go with what you believe subjectively. I want to go with something concrete.
in terms of factual details, I do not know.
Will it, and how will it have that effect? If you don't know, just say you don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
All right, thank you.
okay. I just want to reiterate. So this is something that's sponsored by the Freedom School, and we have a few code of conduct issues. One of them is we don't use substances in the Freedom School. We include that. So it's fine to smoke and come back, or smoke weed, or do whatever you want and come back, but not in this area. So if you could please respect that, I'd really appreciate it. Next on, and then we also do try to just be respectful. Okay. Next is at Ed, actually. Ed, you're next. Then Adam. Then Sergi. Then Ron.
Okay. I think that's a great question. Whether how that would work out. Okay. And on the one hand, I feel really odd sitting here defending the Federal Reserve Bank. Okay. Um, and some of the words you used I thought were really excellent. The Federal Reserve Bank is a component of capitalism. There's no question about it. I am completely against capitalism. I just don't think that a campaign against the Fed, given the history of the end the Fed movement, I don't feel a campaign against the Fed is the best way to attack capitalism. I also feel that if you get away with the Fed entirely, those people would love it. Don't misunderstand. Those people use the super wealthy use whatever there is, whatever opportunities are in front of them to take from us and to give to them. And they use our government, they use the Fed, they use everything. But deregulating everything is going to help them. It's not going to hurt them, okay? And so when you ask,
I know I was a macroeconomics major. Go ahead.
when you said if we got rid of the Fed, how would that either help or hinder the capitalist system? If we got rid of the Fed, I think it would, as I say, I think it would help the super wealthy. That means that there'd be no component in there to go ahead and to try to regulate the ups and downs of the economy. Okay, one. Some people say the Fed is actually making things worse there. I suggest do research, bring that information forward. I want to hear more about that. The information I'm seeing says that the Fed is doing has made mistakes, but has also done some stabilization. If you got rid of the Fed and didn't replace it with anything, none of the banks would have any guarantees. So if State Bank of whatever that is over there went under, if you had your money in that bank, kiss it goodbye. Okay. So there's that aspect. There's many aspects that the Fed does that do somewhat help the little guy, but there's also things that the Fed does that are terrible. No question about it. I'm just saying this is not the best struggle we could have to go ahead and attack the Fed. It's not the best struggle to attack the idea that we need our money backed by gold. There's not enough gold to back all of our money. I was reading some of the end of Fed stuff last night, and one of the places that pointed out that only 3% of the wealth in the United States is actually backed up with even dollar bills. But most of it's electronic. Yeah, most of it is electronic. When we go to work, real wealth is what we produce while we're working. Real wealth is produced by workers. That's where real wealth is. We make refrigerators. We make stoves. We provide services. And we get paid, most of us get paid electronically. And what backs up that electronics? Nothing but our own faith that it's going to be there. Our combined agreement. So anyway, so what I'm saying is I think if you got rid of the Fed, it really wouldn't help things.
Okay, Adam.
Ed Bain down there, Bilal Bain down there. For real, I've always seen the Ed the Fed movement as privileged, racist shit when it comes down to it. Let's face it, the Ed the Fed movement, basically you're trying to cut off all the services. I feel you on that. And that's when you get to libertarianism. I'm fine, fuck the rest of you. That's the problem we got in this country right now. I don't think there's anything that occupy or anything any left progressive group should be involved with, because this is some white people shit. And I say that as a white man. This is some rich white people shit. Alright, that's what it is. And it's some bullshit by rich white people to distract us from their problems. Let's end the Fed so we can run shit. What the fuck does that affect us? That's like, get your government hands off my Medicare. Some stupid shit. And this is a dumbass conversation to be having about this, because we should know this by now. But I will gladly elucidate in my asshole-ish way. So, end the Fed, fuck end the Fed. Let's end capitalism. There you go. It does the same thing.
Okay,
So,
what's your name?
Kevin.
Kevin.
So I completely and absolutely disagree that the Federal Reserve is a component of capitalism. In fact, if you remember what Marx' fifth plank of Marxism was a central bank to control the issue of credit and currency. So in a free market, a truly free market, currency is not defined by what the state is able to dole out. This currency is defined as a medium of exchange between what we're actually getting. So when you have a central bank that's able to dole out all this credit, it is tremendously harmful to everybody else, because it only enriches the few on top at the expense of the many. Because inflationary policies will rise prices while putting putting large amounts of money inside a smaller hand. So to say that it's a component of capitalism is completely wrong. It's not defined as that. Money is not defined as what the state can give you. So I don't see how it's racist. And even the slide to address that. But like I said, when a secret bank can dole out $700 trillion and give it to people all around the world without transparency, while putting the burden not only on taxpayers alive today, but also in future generations. I can't imagine a definition of freedom that includes being born with a debt on your head. As soon as you're born, you have to start paying on the debt. Yes, sir.
We work on stacks. She'll call me when it's my turn. It's not my turn. It's your turn.
Sorry. Was there another question? You had two questions.
I just want to comment in terms of Marx. Marx central banking is not basically a capitalist system like we are in right now. So I would disagree with you saying the federal bank is not a component of capitalism, because the whole economic system is built based on capitalism. And the bank, what it does, the money has money in exchange different, unevenly. Right? It's part of what the capitalist system is about. It's about being uneven. It's about being about not being democratic. The Federal Reserve Bank is not a democratic institution. right? Instead, we coincide itself with capitalism. So it has to be a component of capitalism. It was exchange and distribution of the wealth, and not being a democratic institution. Marx talked about a central bank, and that's under a socialist economic order, not a capitalist order.
Yeah, but it's different definitions of communism and socialism.
I'm
Communism is
sorry.
Well, I'm not talking about Deputy Calicoda, but
Okay.
I'm
I'm
respectfully
sorry.
disagreeing with you. That's all.
that's
So
fine.
we're gonna, so we'll, I'll put you at the end of the stack. So we're gonna go through the stack, and then you'll get to talk again. So if everybody can, take notes on what they want to say when somebody's responding. Okay. So Sergi.
Yeah, well, there is I don't know, some issue, some conspiracy issue that Kennedy tried to end the Fed and he got shot for that. He issue
Louder.
Kennedy.
Kennedy.
Yeah, I hear that he tried to end the Fed and he issued order number 11110, and that was to print money with silver, backed up by silver. And then for some reason, later on he got shot, and then the next president reversed the order and went back to the Fed. So if you're gonna end up the Fed, if this conspiracy theory uh, right, I mean those people have a lot of power, and so anyway, I'm gonna put aside this conspiracy mumbo jumbo. Did anybody remember Max Planck that he was talking on the camp about having this sort of like a money, having a special program that all of the money goes into this central uh, computer and everybody knows how much they got, and the government can collect their taxes right away without having to be taxed after the fact, no income tax. So as soon as you get some money, some money goes to the government and some money goes to your account, and that's the way it was talking. Anybody remember that? So well, that's something that worked, like having a different system, like a parallel system where money can go directly into this one account, and then it goes to your account, and then it goes to the government. I don't know. Just about.
Okay. Next is Ronnie.
Well, the
I'm
guy's
not
name
really
was Max
knowledgeable
Planck.
about this stuff on the Fed, but Prion said something like,
A little louder.
oh, I'm not very knowledgeable about the Fed stuff, but Prion said something about why not let the country go under because of the Fed. Well, I think we need to get rid of the Fed so the country doesn't go under. That's all I want to say. And how we're going to do it, I don't know. But that's just,
Okay, Hector.
Yeah, I'm going to touch on what you said about the federal bank not being a component of capitalism when it is one of the main components of capitalism. And like the brother was saying, Karl Marx was talking about a socialist order or economic system, not a capitalist one, which we found ourselves, and that's what we're discussing. Also, touching on yourself that said that it was a racist institution. To me, every institution on the capitalist state is a racist institution because it's another component to divide and conquer the people. So I think that we should check again to see those institutions. What is the federal bank benefiting? Who benefited most out of having that type of bank? If I may, and someone can explain it. Who benefited most out of that institution? And again, to go back to both of these persons, which I agree with them, is lack of knowledge to come and imply that such a banking system is not part of the capitalist system. It's lack of knowledge in your part, and I think that we should no, it's not personal. It's we. That's why we have this kind of discussion so that we know and find out what's up. How are the institutions being run under the current system that we have, and who's benefiting the most out of the system that we have. And we already know it. We know all that stuff. Precisely why we're here. We want to make sure that the 99% benefit the most. And it is true. Why concentrate on destroying one institution or a capitalist system when the system as a whole is the fucking trouble? So I'd rather concentrate on the system and let all the components that are Nazi fall off, or let's break them down, or whatever it is, or change them, than to concentrate on one thing. But it is okay too, because hey, the least component that we have to destroy about capitalism, the better. If you can destroy them one at a time, hey, by all means, maybe by the time I get there, I don't have to destroy many of them. Thank you.
Ed.
Okay. Couple of things. One is, to me, kind of basic to what we're talking about here is what kind of a world do we want to live in? Where really do we want to go? Do we want to live in a world? I'm a socialist, and I want to live in a world. I don't want to live in a world where everyone is pursuing their own interest, and somehow they think that that's a magic recipe for everything being right. I want to pursue. I want to pursue a world where we all realize that we're all of value, we're all human beings, where we all realize that as long as one person is being exploited, then we're all being exploited. A world where, for me to make a better world for my kids, I have to make a better world for everybody's kids. That's the world I'm looking for, okay? And that does not at all fit within the capitalism box. Capitalism presupposes that we're all terrible people, and the only way, and that we're always going to do our own interest, and the only way you can confine it is is accepting that and doing some kind of structure around greed and around profit. That's not my idea. But for a person, but if you believe that you want a world where we can all pursue our own interests, and that you don't want any government getting in the way of your pursuits, that's a different vision. But please at least realize there's a danger with that division, because as soon as people are just pursuing their own interests, some people will become more powerful than others. They'll have the power to exploit others, and things will get really nasty, as like what we have.
Like I said, I don't think it's a lack of knowledge at all. You have a central bank that's able to dole out as much credit as you want. You can say that, yeah, sometimes they pay for programs that are going to be beneficial, but services are not the same as production. How many refrigerators do you think we have to create in order to pay off the $16 trillion debt that we have? There's not enough refrigerators to be made. Instead, we just dole out this money, we put it inside of a banking account, we put numbers inside of a computer, and it goes on top. And it always goes up on top. People on top will always benefit from something where you can always issue out that kind of money, quote unquote money, because money is not defined like that. It's not defined as numbers inside of a computer, as far as I'm concerned. So I just don't understand that definition. But as far as real fast, before these definitions get real cloudy, we're either going to have communism, big state, common ownership of all property, or you're going to have this kind of syndicalism. But you really can't have both. Syndicalism doesn't include having a sort of central bank in the middle. It means workers owning everything together and voting and all this kind of stuff that I don't believe in. And that's not the same as communism. There's too many contradictions inside this definition. Communism and socialism. So I don't see how it's capitalism even the slightest. I don't even see how it's communist statism. It's actually the essence, the facilitator of fascism and statism, because you're able to have one central bank that's able to tax everybody at certain points and unevenly give it out to everybody. But you're saying, some kind of suggests like maybe we can give money out evenly. It's not going to happen. It never has happened.
Next is Omar.
Well, if you understand the means of production and value of labor, then that pretty much will definitely give you a clear idea why workers are they're the ones that pretty much make things for the wealthy to buy and to profit. You know what I mean? I give a shit if it's called communism or not. You know what I mean? It's not about that. I mean, as I was saying, or as I was asking, somehow the alternative needs to be done. It needs to happen. Honestly, the state itself is already is rotten. You know, it's rotten. And you can smell it right now. You know what I mean? You can smell it in your nostrils, and yet we're not doing anything about it. You know what I mean? It's like smelling garbage next, right in your front door, and yet you don't do anything about it. You know what I mean? So like having alternatives as well as having the clear, basic understanding of why workers must have power, then pretty much we'll get somewhere. It's going to take years, maybe 2 years or even more, to pretty much understand the value of how much labor that all of us could produce, without confronting these obstacles of syndicalism, communism, capitalism. I mean, capitalism we must shut down. I'm anti-capitalist to the core, but dealing with the ideology trap, it's just a in-game or infighting problem that movements have always fall into. So let's learn the basics of economics and see if we can take power from the capital.
Next, I have Adam.
Look, a bunch of people touched on a whole bunch of different things. It's really cool. What I would really have to say to that is, I did not state that the Federal Reserve was a racist institution. Capitalism in itself is a racist system, and I'll tell you why. Capitalism, of course, was built on the backs of slave labor in this country, and we're simply speaking about this country. All right. So, but beyond that, ending the Fed and the Federal Reserve and the Fed movement is based on a libertarian view, which is a racist view, because if you abolish everything and everybody's got to pull themselves up by their own bootstraps, a majority of white people have longer fucking bootstraps, and that's the main thing. As far as socialism, communism, that's a hard thing to put into practice. We've seen it. But it's also, as far as housing, the government doesn't have to own your housing. There's many systems that acknowledge the human right to housing. I'll give you an example. South Africa, some Scandinavian countries, you cannot be evicted from your house for not paying rent. There has to be another cause, because it is written in the Constitution that housing is a human right. So on that issue, I completely differ. But the basic gist of it is, we live under a racist system, whether we want to admit it or not. And it's hard to admit when you're white. Real shit. You just really got to decide whether that benefits you more living under a white supremacist system or not. And if it benefits you more, hey, I'm with it, man. That's beautiful, man. I'll see you when the revolution happens. Okay, that's all I got to say.
You take out my garbage if you like. or I'll take my garbage out.
There you go. And you don't got to be white for it to benefit you more, for real. Real shit, which is pretty sad.
I'm next on Zach. Okay. I guess what I want to say is that I think we should think consciously about how we talk about race and racism, because, and when it benefits us to bring it up and not, because for the most part, I don't think it benefits building the kind of movement that we need to break it down. I mean, the society's racist, we know that, but how does it contribute to us being able to unite, which we need to figure out how to do, because there's more poor white people living in this country than poor black people and poor Latino people. If you count the number of poor people, they're white. If you count the number of poor people who go to bed starving, the largest number are white people. So we need to get over this idea. I don't think it's helpful. I just think it confuses the issue, because the issue is not, I mean, even though of course I know there's racism, I'm not trying to deny that there's racism, but I think the real issue and why we came together as a movement is to deal with the inequality we have in our society that is really class-based, and that, not to deny racism, but I don't see how that, I think sometimes that just makes people feel like they can't talk with each other, so yeah. I guess that was my feeling.
Did I respond to that, or we're not doing
want a direct response?
I just want. I mean, I feel you on that. That's true. There are more poor white people in this country, and that's why I said you benefit from it more. I mean, because that's the truth. We are under a system that's racism. Racism is just an excuse for capitalism. That's where it comes from. It's an excuse for exploitation. I feel that it's incredibly helpful to have this dialogue and to understand because people are antsy about it. And when they're used to it and they understand the systems that are in place and aren't defensive about them, you can have a more open dialogue. So that's what I would say.
I want to answer direct to that, if it's my turn.
It's not your turn,
Oh,
but
but I want to.
okay, I'll put. Everybody probably wants to say something about that,
Sure.
so or maybe not. But okay, I have Sergi, Ed, Hector, and Ronnie. Yeah.
Um, yeah, there was an issue about we should study the basics of economics. At one point, I was thinking about getting a degree in economics, but then I took the beginning course of economics, and there is always one element of economics called ceteris paribus. It's in Latin, which means if everything remains the same, you can predict something. But you can never predict anything with economics because it's always going to change. Even it's like trying to forecast the weather. You can study the weather, what happened before, but you can never study what's going to happen in the next 1 month or what the exact outcome of the weather. So it's a waste of time because that's what the economists is. They're trying to predict something, but they always messing up because that was according to my calculations. That is valuable. So anyway, economics is just to have, depending on of which economist you are studying, and the classical economist lists three basic elements of economics, which is land, labor, and capital. In my opinion, there's only labor and land. And land refers to something that comes from the land itself, which is maybe earth or some materials, minerals, water, whatever it is. So most of the manufacturing that is done requires a lot of land, which is the whatever they want to produce, they gotta get it from somewhere. Let's say they want to do, I say, concrete, they gotta go get a mine to make the concrete, or they want to sell the agricultural products. They need, well, land, of course. And but basically, in my opinion, it's only labor and land. Uh, Capital is only the accumulation of labor over land. So let's say you have something out there. Let's say you are in an island, and all you have is a knife, and you end up in one island, in a deserted island. Your capital will be like the knife because it's a tool. So out there, you wanna need a shelter, and so you have the labor. The land is gonna give you palm trees or whatever, so you can make like a little cabin. So with your labor, you create the capital, which is the cabin. So capital is nothing more than accumulated labor over land. That's it. That's all you need to know about economics. Anything else, you will not be able to predict. So now it comes down with the issue about that. What else is that economics? Well, there is a lot of theories, this and that, and it's always argumentation about economics. And so about ending the Fed, in a way, you can say is a sort of capital, is financial capital. Is living out of the back of the labor of the people. So they built that capital out of our labor, and so they're living out of our backs. There has been some people that they are doing some kind of called the timeshare bank. You do something and you accumulate points and you exchange those points. For example, You may not have a job, but you have a skill. Maybe you're a masseuse, so you do give somebody a massage. You don't get paid, but you get certain points, and they are in this bank. And so you accumulate so many points, and then you may want to trade your points for something else. Maybe you want to go into a vacation and go couch surfing that you want to have to give up your credits. Well, normally couch surfing is for free, but let's say somebody wants credits for couch surfing. Or maybe you go to a bed and breakfast, or maybe you want some food from a farmer. So the farmer may need something, and somebody may have a skill, maybe just labor to pick up the whatever vegetables it is, and so there is the trade with these time sharing banks. So if we want to end up the Fed, end up that capital that they have out there, which is living out of our pockets, we need to create another type of financial bank or another type of capital, which will be the time sharing.
Okay. Next is Ed.
Okay. A couple of things. I'll try to do this quick because I kind of got a lot. One is the issue that you brought up, Kimberly, as far as whether this is a good place to talk about racism or not. I think it kind of is. I think the end the Fed thing kind of is, because you're absolutely right. An awful lot of people in this country that are very, very poor are white. But the end the Fed movement, and not just the end the Fed movement, but it's part of it, has been able to convince those people that the reason they're poor is it's their own fault, and that the reason that people of color are poor is because of their own fault, and they're promoting this libertarian, if you work hard enough, you're going to get, so just get off your butt and work. So I really do think there is a component there that relates. Another thing is people have talked about, they haven't come right out and nailed it, but they've talked about the Fed being responsible for certain economic crises. Say the one that happened in 2008, okay? If we look back at the Fed and economic crises, in the late 70s, this country experienced a good bit of inflation. And that, in my opinion, that was the fault of the Fed. The Fed got too optimistic in terms of creating a overabundant money supply. They'd had 20 years, 25 years of good times, and they got over enthusiastic. The 2008 crisis that we are still experiencing, I agree that the Fed aided that to come on. But the real reason that this crisis we've had has happened was not the Fed's fault. The real problem was that Congress had deregulated the banking system. So the banking system, all of a sudden, these people that could go out and bet with huge amounts of money, and if they win, they win. If they lose, we bail them out. Was it the Fed's decision to bail out these people? Kevin's saying yes. I'm saying the Fed were in on it, but I'm saying a couple of things. One, it was not their sole decision. It was not even their call, but they were encouraging it. You're right, Kevin. They were encouraging it. But I'm also going to say that if you're going to live within a capitalist system, which I definitely do not want to do, but if you're going to live within a capitalist system, what would have I done? I would have bailed out the banks, but I would have not bailed out the bankers. I would have stabilized the international monetary system. If you hadn't stabilized that, things would have been much worse for many, many very poor people. They would have been much worse off. They would have been even worse than the Great Depression in the 1930s. But I wouldn't have bailed out the bankers. These bankers came away smelling like roses, okay? But who was involved in that bailout? The Republican Party, the Democratic Party, the U.S. Treasury, and the Fed. All these people were, and U.S. Congress, all these people were complacent and encouraging this. Did the Fed come to the U.S. government and say, please don't do this? Absolutely not. The Fed were involved, but they were not. If there had been no Fed, those banks would have still got bailed out, and those bankers still would have gone home with huge loans. I mean, huge loans.
Regards to what you said, as being careful when we speak of racism, yes, we have to be careful. Why? Because I don't want to blame someone for my suffering just because the person is white. When I know it's the system that is set up to
hold on to the stream? I want to go lay
maybe
down. Is that
myself
okay?
more as a black person, or we already see
Hello.
it, we already know it,
No,
than
I'll
others.
ask you over there.
But it's still a racist
Okay.
Is
system.
that okay?
Yeah, sure.
I'm calling this the
To say that the discussion has to be take place someplace else, no, I wouldn't want that. This is the right place for the discussion to take place. Why? Because it makes me more comfortable when I know that a brother, any one of you that is different than me, know that there's a system that is treat us unequal, doesn't treat us equal. So yes, I want you to know that I'm treated different than yourself. Even if you don't want to hear it, I'm gonna say it, and I'm gonna keep saying it. Which is what I'm saying. We complaining about a racist system, and by the way, that racist system is being sustained or supported by many people of color. In fact, it was created on our back, and it's still functioning on our back. And yes, racism makes you irrational when you think that just because a person is white, oh, it has to be a rich person. Of course not, because we know by numbers that there are many people of supposedly Caucasian, as people call it, on welfare that are people of color. But you see, that's a racist system that creates a situation so that we be at each other's throat instead of finding out, hey, who's affecting both of us in a negative way. That's what we have to concentrate on. You see? So to tell me not to discuss racism at any given time, even when I'm sleeping, is sending me the wrong message. So I do it even when I'm sleeping. I'm dreaming of creating a different system. Even when I'm dreaming, that's my American dream, creating a different system. And well, you choose yourself how you're gonna face it. But I like to welcome everyone. Yes, white, black, you name it, everyone, to see that the system is the trouble. The system is solved. It's not us. Everything that we go through is part of the system to maintain us fighting among each other while they really, rip us off. Thank you.
Ronnie is next.
You had said that something about the white people are the poorest in our country. I think they are. They probably are because part of it is they're proud and they don't want to be going to the food lines to get food and getting help in any way. And I watched a documentary about this, and I can't remember the name of the documentary, unfortunately, but it showed this one woman who with kids, and both her and her husband lost jobs. They couldn't pay bills, so what she would do is park her big Explorer SUV 2 blocks away from the food kitchen, walk to the food kitchen, get her stuff, and walk back to her car. She was embarrassed that she had to do this, and she wouldn't pull up to those places. So a lot of reasons why white people tend to be probably higher on the list is because they're afraid to go to these kitchens and seek help. I think, where other people are just doing it. Sadly true. There's a lot of people.
Okay, so Hayek once said that there's all the difference in the world between treating people equally and forcing people to be equal. So I'll use myself as an example here. I hate working. I hate working. I just hate working. And I hate working. And I like to drink a lot. And I go out to panhandle occasionally.
At least you're honest.
So I'm very honest about it. So the government, because they don't want to go ask a private bank to print out a certain amount of money and tax future generations, your kids, my kids, everybody's kids, and give it to me, they must be racist, right? Because they don't want to give out the money equally to me, so they must be racist. But what did I do to deserve it? Or to earn it? Nothing. I didn't do anything to earn it. So do I deserve it? People are usually throwing these terms out that everybody is equal. I honestly don't think so. Some people have more work ethic than other people, and that's just life. That's just life. Not the poor is also not the working class. They're not the workers. My dad's been working for 30 years. My dad will never be able to go to a welfare line and get what anybody else inside this country is. That's just the way it is. So unfortunately, unfortunate, but who's really racist? My brother was employed for 10 years at a single job. He could not get a single damn loan. I'm sorry, not a loan. He could not get any kind of unemployment benefits at all. They turned him down flat. And he was telling me that his friend, who came across the border, did not pay anything in taxes, sales tax, did not have an income tax, was able to and have her entire family supported. So who's racist? So who's racist? My family works, my brother works, my dad works, and they don't get shit from the government. They don't get a goddamn piece from the government. So who's racist? So just to bring on that, I mean, we throw these terms out to say like, racism. Yes, but racism is a social problem. It's not an economic problem. It might be a political problem, but it's not. It's not an economic problem as far as I'm concerned. It's a social problem. So in a libertarian view, I own property. I'm allowed to own a piece of land. So if I don't want certain tenants for one reason or another, it doesn't matter if the color of their skin, maybe they're drug addicts, I don't know. Maybe I just don't want them there. Am I racist because I don't want to include them inside my property? I don't think so. I honestly don't. So that's where I stand.
It was quite a ways back, but the idea of money having two principal qualities. Okay, see you later. One is it facilitates the exchange of goods and services, and that's the kind bank. Money has two functions. One is facilitating the exchange of goods and services. So I don't need to carry all my chickens around down to your place to get a pig. We can exchange, and that's bravo. Good money works that way. The other function is to accumulate wealth. That's the one that gets to be problematic. When money becomes something real in somebody's mind as opposed to something that facilitates some other action, then it becomes a problem, because you think that somehow it enhances you or gives you some power, and then you get into that, and then you accumulate, and then the money is no longer available to facilitate the exchange of goods and services, which is where we are right now. We've got 21 to 27 trillion dollars sitting in offshore accounts, not moving into the economy because they can't see a place to make a profit. Meanwhile, we're not able to function. We're locked up. We're frozen as a society because we lack access to this quality, which is the capacity to exchange goods and services. The racist business is, I'm so glad we're talking about it. Makes it comfortable for me as a white person just to have experienced this conversation in public. Okay, so I'll say that's great. There were a couple of more points that I kind of lost track of.
Can I ask you a question? When you say it as a white person, what is the difference that you see? As a white person, go ahead.
I have been in diversity movements for a long time. That is where the fact of my being an old, white, heterosexual, able-bodied, affluent person put me in a certain box and made it hard for me to talk, because whenever I would take a step, I would be exerting privilege, or I would be stimulating a negative reaction, a resentment by others around me who were neither of any of those things. So that's what I'm talking about.
Now you don't feel that here? I don't know.
I don't feel that here.
It's funny because, excuse me, but this is my personal experience. When a person, when you say that, you got some negative reaction because you spoke as a white person that in the past, to me it's looking at life from a really, really narrow perspective. Because the only way that a person can feel kind of, how can I say, reject you, whatever you saying, kind of feel kind of, disgusted with what you say. If you're saying something that is degrading to them, because a person that is capable as you are, or expressing yourself, or and articulating your point, I don't think you will look at it that way. Just because you express yourself, I had to feel myself uncomfortable. I don't care how white you come up to be, like as white as this. You're just expressing yourself. If it's degrading, yes, I'm gonna let you know. But if it isn't degraded, I doubt it that that's gonna make people feel just uncomfortable just because the white person spoke. It is what comes out of the mouth of that white person that makes people uncomfortable. Maybe it's the way that person approach other people that makes people uncomfortable. Sometimes people don't even say excuse me, and they just jump in and start talking. So that shows no respect to the rest of the other people. See, some people think that they know it all and they don't want to allow other people to talk. So that throws you off too. But to come and share ideas as we're doing right here, like I said, we had the right to disagree with each other, and still agree to talk with each other. Because I don't expect you to know everything I know, and I don't expect to know everything you guys know. So, also in relation with what he said, that his father, I remember that you mentioned your father, how he's been working for a long time. Well, some of us get opportunities to work for someone for a long time, and we don't get fired no matter what we do, whether we make a mistake or not. That's for some of us. Okay? Now, some of us work, and if we make a mistake, we get fired. And when we get fired, we still have bills to pay, and we need help. So to continue, you gotta go to the government to ask for some help. I kind of doubted that a person works for 10 years and then is laid off and is not given unemployment, because I was given unemployment benefit, and it wasn't because I was black or Latino or whatever. It was because I worked. Now I know that some people don't get unemployment benefit the way it is written now, when they either get fired or they just walk out themselves out of the job and don't tell anyone. But to say just that, oh, my brother worked for 10 years and he didn't get unemployment, then that's too shallow. Prove it in a way that can be scientifically proven that he didn't get it because he was white. Prove it to me that he didn't get it because he was. Now I bet you that it was because of another cause, either fire or he walked out of the job. But to tell me that he didn't get unemployment because he was
I
white,
didn't say that. I didn't say that.
you didn't have to say it, but you said that he didn't get unemployment.
He didn't get it. There was 10 years of 8 years.
And you mentioned how someone else got unemployment
It was 8
benefit.
years and he didn't get it. He applied and he did not get it.
But what was the reason why he didn't get
I
it?
don't know.
You put it in
You
the
don't know.
context of a Latino getting it. That's what.
Precisely.
Please don't come and tell me that there aren't people moving across the border who never contribute to the system, and yet they get all the money they want. Look at the Octomom. Octomom has her entire family now supported, 12 kids supported by the state. And what is the state? The state can't do anything by itself. The state has to take
Maybe
it.
some people
But this
do
is
that,
where
maybe
Hector's
some,
saying you
but
got to
that
look at
doesn't
the
mean you cannot
circumstances.
generalize. Maybe some people are doing it like you said. Maybe there's some.
But if my father lost his job, he'd probably get unemployment. There's no working it off. My brother didn't get it. My brother did not get it. And I could walk down the street right now and I can count the number of
Because he
people.
was white.
I didn't say that because he was
But
white.
you don't have to say it, but that's the only reason that I see why he didn't get it. Give me a reason why he didn't get it. Go ahead. Give one reason.
Probably because they thought that he had a good record, a good business record, he'd be getting a job.
Please, brother.
Why? He has no responsibilities anyways. If he had kids, maybe he'd do it.
Please, brother. They don't care about that. It's the law. If you get unemployed, if you get laid off, or the business closed, you can go to the office and apply it and you get it.
Well, I'll bring up the paperwork next time I can see it, because he did not get it.
Okay.
Okay.
So I'm next on stack, then Ed, and then Ronnie.
Oh, I'm not on stack.
Oh, you're not? Oh, you just, I saw your hand go up.
Oh, no.
Anyone else want to be on stack? Okay. What time is it also?
It's 4:20.
Okay, so we have 10 minutes
10 minutes.
left in the
Oh, okay.
class.
I like to get back because I still
Okay,
haven't
but
know
okay,
about the Fed. I want to get back to the Fed. It's, who
okay, it's not
has
your turn
been?
right now.
Oh, okay.
Okay, it's my turn, then Ed,
Oh, I'm
and then
sorry.
you. Um, so, I mean, I think this is really making me interested in developing a discussion about the role of race in movement for equality and looking at race and class. I think I just wanted to say that race is, there is no difference between me and Ed that is real, that we have different skin colors, but genetically, me and Ed are 99.9% the same. Race is a social construction that was created to justify inequality, slavery, and all that. There's no difference between me and Kevin, even though Kevin is considered white and I'm considered black, or that Kevin either. But
There is a difference. He might
but
be
there's
rich.
wealth is different. Wealth is different than race, and I just think it's that doesn't mean that we're not treated differently in society, but I think it's important for us to understand that there are people in charge of our society want us to feel separated from each other and want us to feel different from each other so that we don't work together. We have to work together. It's our only chance of survival. So I just would love to try to figure out, how do we do it? How do we work together when people are taught over and over again, you're not getting this because you're white, you're not getting this because you're black, you're getting this because you're white, or whatever. So we have to like figure that stuff out. But part of it is understanding that race is a social and political construction
Yeah.
in order to keep power in certain people's hands and keep us from seeing our commonalities. Yes.
Kimberly,
And so,
can I be on stack?
yes. So I have Ed. Okay, and then wait. Actually, I'm gonna let this man talk. He has not spoken yet, Mr. Lakers.
Good afternoon, group. My name is Tony.
Tony.
I'm relative to a lot of you guys. I'm new to this, but I'm not. Okay. And it's quite interesting that I should show up at this group setting because you're on a subject that really sparks my interest. Why? Because I just recently finished reading a book, and I'll share the title of the book with you. It's called Federal Reserve Realities. I forget the author. I'm sorry, but I'm sure you can get it at the library. It's called Federal Reserve Realities. I'll try to retain the book and get it and bring it and show it to you guys. Right? I have a lot to say about that, but I'll hold my peace with getting the book because it's very interesting. Make a long story short, to my knowledge, the Federal Reserve banking system is ingeniously designed system. And I believe it was you, mentioned of 7 entities, right? And did you say it's true? A very wealthy families put together to control the America's finances, the monetary system, right? And that's a very interesting topic that we have, right? Of how it's holding us down, some of us, and how it benefits some of us, other of us, right? Okay, that's it for that. As far as the social structure and the difference that we all have in common or share or having different, you know, personally speaking, personally speaking, I'm no different than anybody. You know what I mean? But it's not what's done, but it's how it's done that will describe you or have you stereotyped as an individual. You know, I'm not a racist. I'm from Virginia. I'm from Norfolk, Virginia, Clan County. Okay, I'm not a racist. You know what I mean? I hate those that do hate. You know what I mean? And with that, I'll be coming find it quite interesting. Thanks for letting me share.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Come back next Sunday. Be there, be square. Ed.
Okay. A couple of things. I just love all the different directions. This conversation is going in so many directions that are pregnant with opportunities to go ahead and do more stuff around them. Let's see. In terms of the what we've been talking about as far as racism and everything, is even though this is supposed to be on the Fed, that part of it has really blossomed. And I want to say a couple of things. One of the things is I was reading a report, and I don't have it with me, so I can't document it. But I was reading a report. It did say that the majority of the people living in poverty in this country are white, and it also said that the majority of people that apply for welfare are white. And this is easy to explain because there's more white people than any other single group. Another thing is I do want to point a spotlight on the demonizing of the immigration that comes across our southern border. I keep hearing how that they're using up resources, they're doing this, they're doing that. I hear how that the undocumented population is so prone to criminal activity. There's a study done by the University of South Carolina that showed, in fact, that undocumented, percentage-wise, undocumented are something like 1/3 or 1/4 as likely to commit a crime as people within the general population. That it's the least likely segment of the population to commit a crime. And this makes sense because they don't want to commit a crime. Then they're going to be putting a spotlight on themselves. If they get caught, it's going to be much worse. So there's that. And when talking about the stereotypes of people coming across our southern border, my wife is from Cambodia. And by the way, this is me being racist, okay? So I'm going to be racist here. So just be prepared to beat the crap out of me. I am telling you that I've had a lot of Hispanic friends, and my wife's Asian from Cambodia, and so I am running around with a lot of Asian people. I do not know of a group that knows how to, and this is just my own, and you can't base an opinion on one person's scene. But I don't know of a group of people that are more able to manipulate our welfare system than Asians are. And they don't have that stereotype at all. But I'm telling you, these people, some of the things I see is just like, oh my God, okay? And yet the stereotypes, all I'm saying is stereotypes are extremely misleading. Stereotypes are built up from things that are completely unfactual and really need to be ripped apart and looked at. And one more thing I'm going to say, and then I'll shut up because I've talked too long. Kevin, you were talking about work ethic, and 50,000 years ago, when people lived in hunting-gathering communities, if we were all of the single tribe and we go out and we go hunting, maybe some of us stayed home that day. We go out and go hunting. Somebody shoots an elk. We bring the thing back and we're butchering it. Okay? Everybody gets to eat. The people that didn't go that day are eating. The people that did go that day are eating. It's communal property that is the property of the tribe. And yet, hunting and gathering societies, by all documentation of all anthropologists, never had problems with people being lazy. And yet these people are going to get fed and clothed and housed whether they got off their butt or not. And where I'm going with this is what cripples us. What cripples us from being able to be as enthusiastic about doing stuff as we should be is not genetics, it's economics, it's the system we live in. There's tons of people that see the hypocrisy in the system, the idea of going to work where most of what you produce every day is going into the pockets of some asshole who's already got way too damn much money, is not at all what we want to do.
Yes.
Am I in the list?
No.
Oh.
You are now.
You are now.
Sergi. I mean, Hector. No. Hector. I have Hector, Omar, and Sergi. And then we're gonna leave the end or just talking.
Or open mic. Well, open mic.
Open mic.
Well, I forgot what I was gonna talk about.
All right.
But
I'll speak for you.
no, it's great. I mean, the discussion has been great. So I'm just gonna be
Okay. Omar.
I'm holding the camera for Patty, in case you're wondering. um, to get to the root of the problem, another thing that needs to take consideration in this matter is looking at the going back as far as the feudal world, or the feudalization of why how people wind up creating so much wealth while others is down and out, you know, in the gut bucket. Well, the gut bucket is. But anyways, what happened is that during that time you had kings and queens, right? And you have priests, you know, and noblemen. Well, these are the people that pretty much at the time decide how they're gonna run their country, as well as how they're gonna collect wealth, or collect as much money as they could to not only to exploit their communities outside their castles, but to go over, say, abroad to another country, a neighboring country, to exploit them and to occupy their land and wealth, or their materials. You know what I mean? So, you know, think if you think about it, the World Bank, or the global aspect of the bank it starts from there. You know what I mean? I mean, not only that we have to focus on the Fed, but we also have to focus on the global the globalization. For example, the eurozone, the globalization of China, or the countries in Asia, the globalization of over the entire globe. You know, and how they pretty much punctuate their wealth and this and that. You know what I mean? So, looking at the Fed is one step, but going further by looking at the euro, you know, the central bank of Europe is a bigger step, you know, a bigger step to look at the big picture, you know, and going back, say, to the past of the decline of Rome, to from there to the feudal Europe, and you know, the continuation of the primitive, you know, accumulation of wealth.
Just to let everybody know again, so this is the Freedom School. We meet every Sunday at 11 a.m. for a meeting. We meet over there, and then we have classes. And we're going to have more classes next week on anarchism, most likely, as well as on writing comedy skits and stuff like that. Um, so I would like, so let's see, we have Sergi. Kevin wants to go again, and then I would suggest that Nas and Ed end it up to
Wrap it up.
in some way. And if we can try to keep our comments not too long, Sergi and then Kevin.
Oh, mine is gonna be long.
Not too long,
But it's very relevant, I
because
think.
it's almost 4:30.
Okay, well, one of the reasons why New Spain broke away from Spain and then became Mexico, it was about the people, the white, highest, richest people, the noble people that were born in this continent were considered to be inferior by the brother or sister that was born in the other continent. They were born in the peninsula, and they call themselves peninsulars or peninsulars. And the people that were born in the Americas, they call them criollos. And they were the lowly criollos. It could be the brother or the sister. So this discrimination is nothing to do with race or color. It is a construct. And so we kind of got a little bit of subject, I think, because we were talking about the Fed. But I guess all of this has to do about oppression. And so I have this idea of the evolution of interaction, that how people talk about the, hunters and gatherers, the egalitarian society. And to me, that was the highest point of society when there was a lot of equality amongst the people. And according to Karl Marx and other historians, they say that agriculture was the culprit. That because agriculture, there was a division of labor, and then they created classes. Well, I don't think that's what it happened. I think what happens is the way we interacted. If we compare the way we interact or how some animal societies interact, you want to see that they have an alpha leader, and they communicate through the alphaness because they cannot talk like you and I. They cannot talk as an equal, and so they communicate through the alphaness, and so it could be a horse, a fresh horse, and a young horse uh, fights with the old horse, kills it or maims the horse, and becomes the leader of the pack. And so everybody else follows the leader. And so that's how they communicate. They cannot say, "Oh well, let's discuss this and have a consensus, and we decide a decision." So in the evolution of interaction, this is the way I see it. That is the animal way of uh, interacting, which is with the alpha leaderness, alphaness, or through the egalitarian society, which is the hunters and gatherers. And so, if you look around us and you see all this type of oppression, it could be racism, it could be because somebody is a peninsular, or even in Star Trek, there was discrimination among people that had half of the face was white, half was black, but it was the other way around amongst other people, and they were the less people. And so this was going to be a reason because our animal tendencies has to do that we have that embedded within ourselves to have to understand the alphaness, the leader. And so when we go back to that alphaness, we forget our humanity. And to be human is about having a community, the egalitarian society, the hunter gatherers, and that is a society that is more of a female characteristic because the females in the wild they tend to gather together and create communes. It's a tactic for survival to protect their offspring from predators. And so that tactic, which comes from the hunter-gatherer system about creating strength in numbers, it is the female characteristic that has been lost in society. And that's what I hear from this end of the patriarchy or smash patriarchy, but actually, in my opinion, smashing patriarchy is literally patriarchal because it's forceful. It should be about flourish the female characteristic in men and women. Because as men, we also have that female characteristics. We have breasts, but psychologically, that has been taken away ever since the egalitarian society went into the cultural society. And the reason it went into the transition is because we, the society needed to survive. So the alphaness got reverted into society, into the culture, into the male-dominated society, and it just got embedded into the next generation. So what you see out there, just look at the interactions that you see. Any token of information, a word, demeanors, or anything. Look at this. Yes, the 10 seconds. Look at it and see if it's oppressive, submissive, or whether it's egalitarian, participative. So you can say that a token of information is a meme or a behavior, and so look at the behaviors and see if that behavior is oppressive, submissive, or egalitarian, participative.
Oppressive, submissive.
Yes, oppressive, submissive versus egalitarian, participative.
Okay.
There's a nice thing.
Okay. So Kevin has graciously given up his space. So I'd like to say let Ed and Oz go, and I'm actually going to have to go too because I have to be somewhere at 5 o'clock, and I think it's 4:30. Is it 4:30 already? Bye bye, Ted.
It's 4:36.
Oh, I definitely need to run. But you guys go for it. Thank you.
Well, first of all, I would like to say that I had given the floor to all the people that were present over here, and I basically called this meeting more so that I could have listened to what different people's opinions were, and definitely there were some really stimulating ideas that were discussed. But even though we kind of, yes, we did go off the topic, and I really did not want to take the responsibility on the very first meeting on the Federal Reserve Bank, or on the very first meeting that I've organized to a certain extent. So I mean, definitely definitely because I've not taken that responsibility, there was a kind of on and off from the topic, and if there's a next class that I'll be having, I'll definitely make it to the topic and definitely kind of construct it or have a solid structure on the discussion, because I think if we kind of give an open mind to everybody, there's tendency to kind of divert away. Uh, yeah, there was minimal discussion on the Federal Reserve Bank, and I mean, if there's a next meeting we can have, I will definitely take the role and step up and basically direct and construct the meeting in a much more productive manner.
The one thing that I would like to see is more documented fact as far as who's benefiting and who's not, and how the system functions. And if it is part of the capitalism, which I think it is, so that will help a lot.
Okay.
Because that was one thing that I found that was lacking on your part. More facts about it.
In way of wrapping up, we did get off topic. I kind of was I wasn't upset that we got off topic. I thought that a lot of what was brought up here today was really beneficial, instructive, enlightening, liberating, and not that there's not a lot more that can be said about and the Fed movement, all that, but I really appreciated everybody's participation and when everybody contributed, and I was blown away by everybody here, and I love everyone here, and I thought this was tremendous. And so that's my end, and I think you want to go ahead and put together some kind of a organizational. Let's do it again. And Kevin, I really appreciate you being here. Come here. No, we're not shaking hands. We're hugging, guys.
Good seeing you, Ed.
Good seeing you. And listen, your presence here and contribution to this really added to it. I really appreciate that. You and I see things differently.
Live Screamer Patty.
If we don't communicate that and discuss it, then we don't grow.
Yeah. At least we can talk about it.
Yes.
There are, you know what, there are a lot of things you and I would always agree on.
Huh?
Is it over?
Exactly.
We do
Okay, we're done.
agree on pure
Okay.
For example.
All right, let me look at the chat.
Let me write down the website that you so that way I can check this out.
For the Ustream?
Yeah.
Oh, Ustream.tv. Hey, Shadowless. That's hi, please. Hi, yes. Ustream. Ustream.tv.
Ustream as US.
TREAM. Oh, they didn't chat very much. Okay.
Ustream.tv
/channel /PMbeers.
Kuma, get over here.
PM?
Yeah, PM and then BEERS.
Cool.
Alright, let me see. Ustream.tv/channel. There's an A right there. Yeah, it's CHA.
Oh, sorry.
Hey, now y'all, I'm gonna stop streaming, but I will be here around here tonight and tomorrow morning, and who knows for how long. So I'll be back. Especially if the cops are messing with us. Bye, Chat Tribe. And thank you, Omar, because I was falling asleep. I had to go take a nap.